It's always good to be prepared for emergency situations when flying your drone, and landing it is definitely one of those. Sometimes you have unfavorable terrain, or it may be a little bit windy, and that may force you to catch your drone to land it. Now this happened to me the other day when I was testing out the payload release system. For some reason it slipped underneath and this happened. Now the landing gear underneath of the Phantom drone, or really any Phantom drone that you have, should be good enough to protect the camera and the gimbal from anything like weeds or little stones. But if you're in a field with tall grass, it may be a little bit more challenging to try and land it somewhere that's safe and flat. An example that I can think of is when I go hiking. Obviously when I go, I want to bring my drone and be able to capture some of the cool views once I get to the top. But once I get to the top, there could be a lot of jagged rocks and really just no safe area to take off or land from. And a lot of the times I end up catching it with my hand just to make it a lot easier rather than trying to have to, get it down into this little area that's the only single flat area. But again, that's just what happens to me whenever I go on hikes. So again, I often use the technique of catching it, and it does really help out a lot to know some different tips and tricks before trying it. Something funny that I want to mention is that in all of my videos or my drone edits, I would always have someone catch it at the end, and it kind of symbolized that the video is coming to an end, and a lot of people always like catching this thing as it comes down. So again, I thought that was a little funny note to throw in there. I always had someone catching it at the end of my videos. Now, I talked briefly about the landing gear that the Phantom series has. We do have a lot of room down here to grab when we're trying to catch the drone, but there are two things that we need to be worried about or be careful of, and that is the gimbal as well as the propellers. Now, I probably don't even have to say the propellers. Obviously, everyone is going to try and stay as far away from them as possible, but accidents do happen. I know that I've cut myself a few times on my fingers, and it definitely doesn't feel good. So definitely be careful of those away from your eyes, your face, your fingers, everything. Also, the gimbal. Now, this is something you definitely want to be careful of, as if you apply too much pressure to it, you could break it or even wear out the motor. So be careful that when you're grabbing it, it's in a position that you won't touch or even bump the motor, or the gimbal, just to be careful. Now, getting into the tutorial portion of this video, first I want to go over the grip that I use when catching this drone. Next, I'll go over some of the things that I look out for, and then finally, I'm going to go over some different examples, or show you some different examples so you can see what to expect. So basically, when you look at the landing gear for the Phantom, we have three different sides. We have the front, the bottom, and the back, and usually I'll catch it from the back. I find that that is the safest because you're farther away from the gimbal, and you can also keep your thumb away from the spinning propellers. So basically, when I grab it right here on the back, and I notch my thumb right down in here next to the battery so it's away from the propellers, and you'll notice I get a very good grip on it. It's really not going to be going anywhere. I do see a lot of people, or I know of a lot of people, that catch it from the front and they kind of hold it like this. Again, I do have a good grip on this, but just look at that thumb. It's a little bit too close to the spinning propellers, so again, that's something to be careful of. Another thing is you're also kind of close to that gimbal. Two things, again, to be careful of. So I would always recommend grabbing it from the back. You're going to be farthest away from the gimbal as well as the propellers, and you also get a very good stable grip on it. Now, as far as the things to look out for as you're landing it, you should bring it to around eye level, or chest level, and once it's right about there, you can just reach out and grab it, and then continue to push down on the stick. Don't let go, just keep pushing, and you'll notice that the propellers kind of spin sporadically, and the drone may be wobbling around, but again, just keep pushing down, and finally the drone will turn off. From there, you're going to have your remote in one hand and your drone in the other hand, and it's just best to find a nice flat surface to set both of them down. Another thing that I do want to mention is you don't need to have any special settings turned on or off. I have my vision positioning sensors turned on, my obstacle avoidance turned on, everything, and this still does do the trick. So don't let anyone tell you that you need to have your obstacle avoidance turned off, because it does work perfectly with all of those settings turned on. Now let me put on my propellers, and then from there we'll get into the examples. Alright, so I've got the drone up about 100 feet now. I'm going to break it down and catch with my hands. You'll notice that the motors kind of spin sporadically, as I said in the beginning of this video. It's also going to wobble around a little bit, but don't worry, just keep pushing the stick down and the motors will stop completely. So there's really not much all that to it. It's super simple. It does take a lot of practice. I remember the first couple of times when I was trying to learn this, I just kept going up and down, and soon I got the hang of it. So guys, that's about all the tips that I have for catching your drone when you land it. Make sure to take these out with you next time you go flying, as again, you do want to come away with all of your fingers. I'd have to say that the most important thing is the grip that you have. Make sure you tuck that finger underneath of the battery, or at least around the battery so that you don't get it caught within the propellers. Down in the comments below, let me know if you'd like to see this for the Mavic Pro. I know that a lot of people were asking for that, and it is a different kind of drone, but I figured I would do this one first as it is a little bit easier, and then go from there. Also, let me know down in the comments if you have any questions about catching the drone, but it should be straightforward. So guys, anyway, as I said, this video is coming to an end. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new around here, as I have been trying to upload daily. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.